we go again. Can't sleep? You're in the right place. Tonight we go back to 1959, the golden days of midnight movies, and one of the sleaziest, sickest movies ever made. Yes, fans of splatter. Essentially, it's the story of a scientific experiment that goes horribly wrong. All attempts to create life or even reanimate beings seem to go wrong in midnight movies. Not just in this show's special feature. I don't know if it's just me, but this talk about these delicious things really whets my appetite. Enjoy.
Create life. To move it at will up and down the evolutionary path. That's something. Something I don't think you quite appreciate, Tom. That's all for tonight, Tom.
But...
Good night.
Yeah, take it easy, Tom. You just don't seem to get it.
You're ready. Awake. The sound of my voice is your master. Get up. Get up.
I'm sorry, I just don't feel like it. His jaw is certainly working overtime, isn't it? The guy playing the mad scientist here is one Jeff Alexander. And he is certainly acting as fast as he can.
No. Everything was functioning perfectly. What happened this time?
You see, there's always terrible trouble and complications getting a hideous experimental mutation to get off the slab and run around. But what about reanimating corpses? Is that better? In the sexy splatter mess that was The Brain That Wouldn't Die, tonight's special feature, the action takes place either in a laboratory or at strip joints. I'm not making it up. Production on this monster of a flick closed in 1958, but the film didn't get a release until 1962. For its day, and on a shoestring budget out of Tarrytown, New York, The Brain That Wouldn't Die was pretty strong stuff, loaded with atmosphere. It's become a midnight movie classic on screens all over the world. So if early splatter movies are your cup of meat, then this should be a great episode. If not, then go and watch the Home Shopping Channel.
Yes, the film is the story of idealistic young Dr. Bill Courtner. Unfortunately, his ideals are sadism and cruelty. Dr. Bill has big arguments with his father surgeon about medical experiments. Ew.
The Brain That Wouldn't Die has the kind of storyline that you don't see enough of in movies these days. It's about a doctor experimenting with an organ transplant technique who keeps his girlfriend's severed head alive on a drip feed after she's decapitated in a car crash. And then, being a practical man of science, Dr. Bill Courtner goes hunting for a new body to go with the head. The film doesn't attempt to draw morals. And don't be put off that it's in black and white. There's something about The Brain That Wouldn't Die that'll send shivers down your brain.
Ooh, look. There's a brain. But is it one that won't die?
Too late.
Ah, look, the machine that goes ping. I'm sure it's really state-of-the-art.
He is. I just picked up the same pulse beat.
Love her voice. Is she Alvin and the Chipmunks?
His electric shock should stimulate the motor area enough to innervate the heart again. Then he won't need any external stimuli.
Keep away from the motor area.
If I knew where the motor was, I'd stay away from it.
Try to play God. Some choices are not yours to make.
When the obstetrician has to decide which to save the mother or the child, who plays God then?
Pulse is coming back stronger than ever. It's unbelievable.
Nothing's unbelievable if you have the nerve to experiment. I've been working on something like this for weeks.
Yeah, for weeks already. Weeks, I tell you. On something as tricky as live organ transplants. Such dedication.
Experiments on people. You should be sure of the results first.
Anyway, to cut a long operating theater scene short, the operation is a success.
I know I'm close.
Now here's Dr. Bill's fiancée. What this poor woman has in store for her, well...
Promises, huh?
Always promises.
Careful, your father's liable to report us.
Stop the floor show. When you two are married, it won't be fun to watch anymore.
Well, I can promise you one thing. Your grandchildren won't be test tube babies.
You better hurry if you want to catch that plane to Denver, Dad. You know that medical convention can't start without you.
Bit of expositional dialogue there to get rid of Dad and pack the old man off to Denver. Off to the eternal glory of B-movie obscurity.
Bill, the line between scientific genius and obsessive fanaticism is a thin one. I want you on the right side of it.
If I don't experiment, how can I hope to perform operations like the one you almost messed up?
But I can't cover up for you anymore. The superintendent had it out with me. He thinks it's you who's been stealing those limbs from the amputee operations.
So what if it is?
Limbs and organs taken from people.
I've got to have them to work with. Sure, I've made a few mistakes, but I've learned from them. I've learned.
Namely, grave robbing.
Your reservations are all set. 3:30 takeoff.
Well, what have you two planned for the weekend?
Oh, nothing much.
Just a little hot sex.
A quiet weekend.
Now, what do they have planned for the weekend? Oh, nothing special. Just a few close friends over for an orgy with amputated limbs. But first, an exciting driving montage. A really, really exciting driving montage. What was supposed to be just a gentle amble to upstate New York and a weekend of canoodling turns into a freaky-deaky show any minute now on The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Ooh, Paul McCartney probably has rights to that. What, the wife doesn't have anything to say about this? You know, they do say doctors tend to hit the medicine cabinet a little bit hard. Looking to make some more amputees. All right, well, it looks like young Dr. Kortner is safe. But wait, something's missing. What about your fiancée? That's right. You heartless swine. Are you getting a bad feeling about this? God, no. The horror. The horror. Wait, I think he's gonna blow his chunks. He's gonna sell the old Buick. Do the Technicolor yawn. Glad we're not actually witness to that particular scene of horror. Now, here, you're gonna put his jacket in there and see if he can stop the bleeding. Now, think about it, folks. This is supposed to be him grabbing her decapitated head and sticking it in his bag, is it? Not exactly convincing. Just looks like he folded his jacket in two. Now, I need to be careful with this jacket. It's got silk lining and a special pocket inside for my condoms, comb, car keys, my wife's head. I mean, I know special effects weren't what they are today, but still, you'd think they would have made it a bit more convincing. Wait a minute, there's icky stuff all over my hands. Yeah, that's blood, I think they call it. Blood on your hands, no slight symbolism there.
Kurt! All right, for God's sake, open the door. I'm coming! Nana, what's happened to you? It's been a terrible accident. I've got to save her. Got to save her. What is it? What have you got there? Kurt, please. Sterilize the tubes and instruments quickly. What are you going to do? Aren't you going to have a look in the closet first?
Why? What's in the closet? All my secrets are out, you know.
This is urgent. Do as I tell you before it's too late. I can't waste precious time arguing with you.
Everything in the lab is about as convincing as you'd expect for a movie of this genre, especially with those bits of telephone cord wrapped all about the shop and the popular mechanics kit set laboratory. Now, it may not look state-of-the-art to you, the layman, but the Dr. Bill Kortner has faith. Just a few little tweaks and adjustments, and we'll have the little lady back on her neck in no time.
The eyelids. I saw them move. What you see is real. What's done is done, and what I've done is right. It's the work of science.
Well, that's okay then. Reanimate away to your heart's content.
I'm wonderful. fire. Burning. Let me die. Let me die.
I've had success with transplants. Now I can do it for her.
You're not listening. This guy is such an old-fashioned romantic, isn't he? Always thinking of ways to please his lady.
She'll live and I'll get her another body. I can make her complete again.
Only a madman can believe that she could ever be like before.
Don't argue with me.
We're both mad.
I love her too much to let her stay like this. I'll restore her as before.
That's the problem. Nobody listens to the woman. But listen to Jan in the Pan they will, even if all her vocal cords have been severed. Anyway, Midnight Movie lovers, the story and action in The Brain That Wouldn't Die gets even more wacky and tacky when we return. Welcome back. Tonight, we're devoting almost an entire episode to one of the earliest and greatest splatter films ever made. I'm talking about the 1962 shocker, The Brain That Wouldn't Die. This midnight movie was actually completed in 1959 with the title The Black Door. It was eventually released 3 years later as The Brain That Wouldn't Die and The Head That Wouldn't Die. American comedian Steve Martin used it as the basis for his comedy The Man with Two Brains. Now then, let's get into the forensics and see how Dr. Bill plans to give his fiancée the ultimate makeover, working from the neck down.
You really believe you can work a transplant on her? Successfully?
Yes.
Like my arm. Withered and deformed.
Yeah, right, like my arm. So the arm was one of the less successful ventures. You got me there with the arm, I have to admit it. However, it does look like it is his hand. The actor just decided to kind of hold it in a strange, spasmic way.
Or anyone call. Tell them you don't know anything about it.
Wait a minute, are you trying to kiss this guy?
I don't think anyone will trace us here because her body was burned in the wreckage.
Yes, of course, of course. Look, Bill, before you go, do have a look in that closet. It's the reason why I called you up here.
I guess some of the friends from the weekend orgy are hiding in the closet.
Keep it locked.
Last night it got so violent it almost broke out.
No. Oh, not through that thickness. Keep it closed. I've got to think about her now. I've got to find her a body.
How are you going to go about getting one? Bill, how will you do it?
There are ways.
Oh, there are ways, huh? You mean like...
There are ways.
Yeah, you can say that again. You mean like ways. I know what you mean, like way ways, like really ways. Dr. Bill's brilliant plan? Find a body for his bride-to-be. And where better to look than in the sleazy saxophone part of town, where men in sharkskin suits drop cigarettes in puddles of neon. A nighttime world of burlesque. Burlesque and girls with names like Blaze and Roxy. A transplant surgeon needs steady nerves. Anywho, now this movie definitely has it all. Dismemberment, beehive hairstyles and boa feathers. It's almost too much B-movie goodness to be true. Actually, I think a good doctor might end up with a body even hotter than the one he lost. That's not a bad plan to upgrade every once in a while. Oh, hey, there's Salvador Dali and, I think, but I'm not sure, a very young Madonna.
That was Madonna when she was just starting out. She's gotten so much better since then, if you like that type of thing. Now let's go back to the lab to see what's on the tap.
Now, just to recap, y'all recall how Dr. Bill was performing more illegal operations than pirate software on a stolen laptop. And then, when he went for a drive in the country with his fiancée Jan, there was a terrible crash, and he brought her decapitated head back to the lab. Okay, well, that's right about where we are now. Now, while he's out running around town looking for a substitute body, Jan in the Pan gets friendly with another monster. This one is lurking in the closet, and is, of course, the horrendous result of an earlier failed experiment.
Knock once if you hear me.
And knock twice for... Oh, and here's another unfortunate victim of Dr. Bill's experiments, Kurt, who had a platypus grafted onto his arm.
I hate him for what he's done to me. If you only knew what it's like being like this.
Well, if you only knew what it's like being like him.
Do you know what it's like? Together we could have revenge.
No, the plot thickens.
You want revenge?
So, stand by for revenge, folks. Now, I must say, it does a few things very well, this movie. The head on a tray and the thumping door in the laboratory, for example. The rude saxophone soundtrack and the atmosphere of casual sleaze. It does send shivers down the spine. Anyway, Dr. Bill couldn't get a stripper alone long enough to decapitate her, so he calls in on a photo model studio. I mean, you have to dig it, right? This is meant to be your typical photo session at a photo model's studio. But it's more like all the paparazzi just burst into her place one afternoon. The height of naturalism, the scene, isn't it? I love how Dr. Bill just wanders in, sits down, and lights up a butt. Oh, this has got to be one of the happiest crews of photographers ever. Oh, the disappointment. What? Just 5 more minutes. I'm going to get the perfect shot. All right, beat it, boys. I got to get killed here sometime. So anyway, smooth Dr. Bill sweet-talks the dame and then spirits her away to his country house, with the promise of hot cocoa and cookies and a little reconstructive surgery. But when he gets there, he finds that poor old Kurt has already been killed by the thing in the closet.
Oh, rot. I have a wicked feeling that we might have left that bit of information out. Never mind. There's still time to make up for it.
I hope he prolongs your existence into a lifetime of agony. Then we'll see who's laughing at whom. You miserable fool!
Get him!
Savagery beyond belief. Well, it is pretty strong meat for 1959, which is possibly why the film didn't get a release until 1962. And isn't it amazing to think that with scenes like this, which seem a bit tame by today's standards, you are witnessing the birth of the splatter genre of horror movie. Anyway, now we're up to speed on the plot.
Wonderful. I'm so pleased. One more scene from The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and then a selection of treats to tease you to forthcoming episodes. Aren't you lucky, you time-sucking, sofa-hugging weirdos, you?
Well, sports fans, we've only a few minutes left until the end of The Brain That Wouldn't Die, which means, as usual, for films of this era and ilk, the last 3 or 4 minutes are going to be the most action-packed. All the special effects budget and most of the big scenes are compressed into the final 200 seconds. Now, well, that'll shut her up. That'll stop her from giving me orders. The creature's in the closet, but maybe she'll use her special mind powers to get that thing open. And not through the nose. Well, it must be a relief for young Dr. Bill Courtner, the misguided humanitarian, to finally be back at the operating table. And who needs fancy surgical equipment when all the action is off-screen anyway? Wait, who's there? Now, up until this point, whether you like it or not, Dr. Bill has turned out to be a pretty smart operator. Don't mess it up now, man. Oh no, here he goes. It came from out of the closet. The horror. Well, seems like a normal enough hand. Anyway, just a question for the observant. Why are they still fighting from behind the door? Ah, here it is at last. Our monster. Ladles and jello spoons. This is actually Eddie Carmel, who was known as the Jewish Giant. He was 7.5 feet tall and worked the circus, such as P.T. Barnum, as well as playing monster parts in midnight movies. What a life. Open your eyes, you doofus. The mask is falling off, isn't it? Tastes good. Oh, so Eddie Carmel in the monster suit is going to save the leopard skin swimsuit model from the flames, isn't he? It does lead to some interesting questions, though, such as, what happens afterwards? Does he ravage her? Or does he do the honorable thing and come back down and commit joint suicide with the brain that wouldn't die? I think we need a sequel. We need a sequel. So anyway, there we are. The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Memorable title. Unforgettable film, though I still would have preferred the creature that came from inside the closet.
It'll be all right. Take it easy. Calm down.
With this accomplished, I said to myself, what would the effect be of this hormone or a complete human pituitary being transferred in the body of another creature? I began a series of experiments.